Hi, welcome back to Leadership as a Contact Sport. I'm your host, Steve Harper. I have to start by saying how excited I am by the response that we are getting to this series, not just from school districts around the country and how much they are learning and picking up from these magnificent leaders, but also the business community and the general public that are learning about the challenges that these school districts face, how these leaders are persevering through very challenging times, and in a lot of cases, having to do more with less. The stories that are being told are opening the eyes to our communities in a way that I never anticipated. And it's getting people excited and enthusiastic about getting more directly involved. Talk about a positive ripple effect. And I am super excited for today's guest. Dr. Joseph Harrington is the superintendent of Hurst-Euless-Bedford ISD here in Texas. They go by HEB ISD for short. It's a mouthful, I can assure you. But Dr. Harrington was introduced to me by a mutual friend, someone, believe it or not, that I went to high school with a long time ago, that is actually a member of Dr. Joe, as they call him, at the district, part of their team. And when she learned about this series, she said, without question, Dr. Joe needs to be on there. He's one of the most gifted leaders you could possibly ever imagine. Now, having met other members of the school district's team, they all echo that. They say he goes the distance. He does what he needs to do to make it the best possible environment, not only for students, but also for the staff. He is focused on giving back to teachers. He's focused on making the very best impacts that he possibly can. And he walks the talk. And I can't wait to hear some of the nuggets that I know he'll share with us as to what makes a great leader. And I'm just very, very humbled that he is taking time out of his day to share some of that wisdom with us for this series. So let's dive in and see what Dr. Harrington says about leadership being a contact sport right now. Well, guys, I am super excited to be joined by Dr. Joseph Harrington today. Dr. Joe, as his team calls him. So, Dr. Joe, welcome. How are you today?
Hey, we're having a great day here in HEV.
All right, I love that. I need to know the background behind your district. I want to dive into your history, but as I was saying in my introduction, it's quite a mouthful for your full district name. So, how did that come about? Because I think a lot of people would be very interested to know.
Well, HEB ISD, we're Hurst-Euless-Bedford, so we're three cities right next to DFW Airport. Um, we're a district, we've been around, was it 60 years? Yeah. So it was, I think, Hurst-Euless first, and then Bedford joined finally, and we became whole. So, it's a neat place. I've been in a number of districts, but one of the things I find so neat is this relationship with the cities. The cities take
Yep.
good care of us. We take good care of the cities, and we have this incredible chamber of commerce that seems to be the glue that holds everything together. And there's just such great synergy between all of us. Like we have one chamber, one economic development for
Okay.
all three cities. The school district is a part of it. It's just really cool. So that's our kind of our current thing. History. Bell Helicopter. Bell Helicopter is
Yeah.
in our backyard, and so they came to Texas, and this area really started to grow. And then now we have American Airlines in our backyard. Some major corporate centers like a lot of times your school district is one of your biggest employers. When I've got
Sure.
Bell Helicopter and American Airlines, I am not the biggest employer.
You got a ways to
Anywhere.
go, right? Just a little
Yeah.
bit.
And then I always laugh the connection. My grandfather, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and my grandfather worked for Bell
Oh, no
back during
kidding.
the war in Buffalo, New York. And then Lawrence D. Bell, LD Bell High School, Lawrence D. Bell came to Texas and opened up Bell Helicopter and uh, LD Bell High School.
Wow. Well, that's pretty darn cool. That's a neat way to kick this off. I'm very, very impressed. I appreciate that little bit of background for sure. I would love to. You touched on it actually. Coming from Buffalo, give us a little sense of your career path and what led you to, what you do today.
Okay, well, let's start with the most important thing. I'm from Buffalo. Go Bills. Um,
That
I'm
makes you super popular in the Dallas area, I'm sure, when you
Hey,
say it.
straight Bills Mafia. But I will say this: when I moved here, everybody goes, "Hey, we love playing the Bills in the Super Bowl."
I,
I'm like, "Yeah, thank you guys, thank you, I
yep, yep.
appreciate that." But um,
And welcome to
no,
Texas, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I grew up in Buffalo, went to college in Buffalo. Uh, I met my wife, and she was actually from Memphis, and we settled in Tennessee. I spent
Okay.
8 years in Tennessee teaching and coaching. And I was coaching high school football, and my wife was flying out of DFW, and she said, "We need to move to Texas." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm not going to argue that." you know,
You're a smart man. You listen to your
yeah.
wife. That's a good thing.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to listen to my, always going to listen to my Jenny, but also coaching high school football, and you want to go to Texas? Yeah, that's the place
That's the
to be. If
Mecca.
this is, yeah.
Yep.
So had really enjoyed that. I spent time at Louisville Marcus and at Flower Mound.
Okay.
So I coached there. We had great fortune to win a state championship when I was over at Marcus. I moved into administration and I spent some time in Northwest. I spent time in Grapevine, Colleyville, and then got over here. And now this is year 12 in HEB. And, you know, just we've been really, we love it here.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've got to ask you. So, as a high school football coach, when you look back on all of those challenges and working with young players as they're coming up through their, from freshman team to JV to varsity, what lessons did you learn as a coach to motivate and inspire them that maybe you apply still today as a superintendent?
You know, I don't know. I think it's just, whether you're coaching, whether you're a band director, you're sponsoring a club. It's that extra time you get to spend with kids outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
It's just, we have so much influence in our positions as teachers, and then you double down on that when you add other pieces to it. And we were talking to somebody recently. We were talking about when you have a position of influence, we got to make sure we're influencing for good. And that's the thing. I think whether I'm coaching, whether whatever uh, program, it's just all those pieces and persevering, seeing it through, um, doing your job, all those things we teach the kids. And again, you know, I I was always coaching. My son was an athlete, but my daughter was the theater and choir kid.
Yeah.
But the same thing. I mean, when she finished a performance, she got the feedback from dad, "Hey, you were flat on that one note, in the second act." And I'm like, "Hey, it's the same feedback you get after a game, after you watch film. We're going to watch film, whether it's film of the theater performance or film of the game. You know, it's what we do in HEB. Our CI, our program, continuous improvement. We always plus delta everything we did. How can we do it better? If we don't learn from what we just did, why did we bother even looking at it again? We're going to
Yeah.
look at what we did and we're going to try and make sure we do it better.
I love that. Could you clarify for someone that's maybe not familiar with the plus delta concept and just share a little bit about how you apply that and how you use it?
Yeah, we do a number of things in HEB, and they're all part of what we call our continuous improvement model. It's based heavily on the Baldrige framework,
Yep.
but we'll take a look at something and we'll put our pluses, what went well. Our deltas are what might we change next time, and then we always put a parking lot. What are our lingering questions?
Oh, I
And
love
so,
that.
we're gonna plus delta most everything we do, and then we're gonna review our plus delta, because if I ask people's opinion, I've got to then show them that I've looked at it and I respond to it. And so all of our leadership meetings with our leadership in the district, we'll have a plus delta after every meeting, and then we'll review that at the beginning of the next meeting. Here's feedback we got, and I'll usually be real honest with them. Sometimes there's things we can adjust, sometimes there's things no, but at least we heard you. We heard what you had to say. We listened, um, and then we can move forward because we all had a say, and then we can learn from it. We can do it better. A lot of what we do in our classrooms heavily based on our PDSA, plan, do, study, act. So us very similar. We're going to plan out what we're going to do. We're going to do it. We're going to study what happened, and then we're going to act. We might keep doing it, or we're going to change because we got to continually get better.
I love that. Is Did that come from any specific philosophy from a prior leader that you worked for, or where did you pick up that philosophy to apply it there at the district?
Yeah, it's interesting. HEB's been doing this over 20 years. And they were they were HEB was starting, their numbers were starting to drop, and they weren't really sure why.
Oh,
And we had to look to find a way to make sure that we weren't going to just kind of ooze out of into oblivion, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
how do we make sure that we're continuing to do everything right and stay relevant? And so they started looking at some different programs, and there was a program actually out of Florida. Jim Shipley, Continuous Improvement, the Regional Service Center brought them in, and us and a number of other districts went and looked at it. And it just really clicked with HEB. And so
Really?
our former superintendent was deputy superintendent at that time 20 years ago. And he really spearheaded that under two superintendents ago, Gene Buinger. And then Steve Chapman really drove that. He was my predecessor. And those, we put these pieces in place, and then we have lived by those beliefs all these years. Like I was explaining it to somebody one time. I said, guys, we don't just do things, we do things that work.
I
And
love
it's so
that.
subtly different,
Yep.
but it's important. We
Yes, it
didn't
is.
we didn't put the check mark because we did it. We put the check mark if it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I love that. Well, as a young leader, when you were coming up through the ranks, in specifically around school administration, I'm curious, does anybody stand out as, being someone that you tried to model your leadership style around, or that you took really good ideas and were able to make them into your own?
Yeah. I got to work with a lot of great leaders, and there was just so many. I remember the lady who hired me, Robin Ellis, at Medlin Middle School, my first administrative job. I learned so much from her because she looked at things very differently than me, and it really helped me do some of the things and see the importance of some of the things that maybe weren't things I naturally would go toward, but it gave me that value. I worked for Robin Ryan over in Grapevine, Colleyville, but just so many leaders, and you can pick up something from each of those leaders. Um, I think you can always learn something,
Sure.
and if you've got your eyes open and you're listening, so much of who I am, I think, goes back to how I was raised. So much goes back to the what I learned from my dad, from my mom, from the family. I mean, those first teachers you have, boy, they really hone you in
Yep.
on these things. Yeah. So my dad was a teacher. My dad was a coach. Yeah. So I didn't have much of a
So
choice.
you come by it honestly. That's
Yeah.
great. Was he a football coach as well?
He was. He was. Yeah.
So you as a youth obviously had to play football. So what was your position?
That's why everybody laughs at me because they don't think I was big enough. But I was an offensive lineman, and they see me now, and everyone's like, yeah, what? I'm like, well, it was a different time, and a different weight was needed for it, and it's no longer needed.
Yeah, could you imagine playing in today's game, at the size that you might have been back then? I mean, these players are huge.
Oh, Trinity High, Trinity High School, one of our high schools. Trinity has multiple, I think it's like 8 or 9 over 300 pounds. They have one young man, he is
Goodness.
6'10", 420 pounds.
Oh my
That's a
gosh.
large human.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I would
And
not
it's
wanna be
just,
hit by that.
no, I do not.
Oh, well, let me ask you, when people ask, part of why we're doing this series, right? And I think I explained this to you when we had our offline conversation is I feel like, there's always something to learn from great leaders. And the thing that I picked up from your team, kind of in my pre-interview, is that everybody seems to think that you make everybody better. You put the emphasis where it is, you walk the talk, you enable people to do what they need to do, right or wrong. If they make a mistake, you are always happy to help guide them back onto the right path, but that you make everybody better around you. Where's that come from?
Again, I think it is just sometimes it's who we are. I tell people, guys, I don't have a problem with, these self-help books and the leadership books and all that, but we are who we are. And I will tell you, because of that, the Gallup strength training is
Yep.
really a piece that I've leaned into because it is you you exemplify what you do best.
Yep.
So yes, we can always get better at things, but we are who we are. So let's get better at who we are. We saw what happened when Michael Jordan tried to play baseball. All right. So let's do we want to be average at everything, or do we want to be great at a few things? And that's the pathway to greatness. And I do believe that is take who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. We all have greatness in us, and each of us have different tools that we do better than others. Let's stop trying to fix every piece of it and be the best you can be at who you are, because you can't be anybody else. It will fail.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how I believe. Something you said about if you make a mistake, I do believe the milk is spilled. Just clean it up. Clean up the milk. Let's
That's
go.
great.
Just don't spill it every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have a problem. That's the thing. Everybody's going to make a mistake. A belief that perfection is possible is foolishness.
Yep.
We're all going to make a mistake. Clean it up. Let's move on. What's next? I don't have time to fool with that. Let's not do it again. What happened? What caused it? Fix it, move on. We're great. When you sit there, nobody wants to be yelled at when they already are yelling at themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a great philosophy. I was going to ask you, when somebody asks like what your leadership style is, how would you characterize your leadership approach?
You know, I think we're going to have high standards, and I think, whether it's the teacher, the coach, whatever it is, we're going to do it better. Like I was talking about public education, and public education right now, there's a lot of negative rhetoric, and
Yeah.
we cannot allow a weak link in public education. And I was talking about we all have to help each other, because we need all of our scores to be strong. And I said, guys, with that said, I still want to beat every one of you, but I only need to beat you by 1 point. I need you right behind me.
Yeah.
All right, because I don't need we need no weaknesses in public. We've got to help each other be as strong as we can be to show everybody what great things are going on in public schools, and to stop this negative rhetoric and stories that, who knows, maybe the story, maybe a story there or there is true, but it's a story. Stop taking an individual event and making it the
The
mantra of
narrative.
what is
Yeah.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I can't fix a one-off, but I can tell you I know what we do day in and day out, and it's great things with kids.
Well, the neat thing about this series is we're actually getting a lot of traction with school district leaders. I believe that, we never as leaders have all the answers. We can always be learning, but we also have something to teach. You're clearly an example of that in a big, big way. And we're so grateful for your time. But there's also this really neat momentum that we're getting from the general public, people that are just part of the community, people that are in the business community, and they haven't looked through the lens of what's going on in their local school districts. And I would love to hear from your perspective what you'd like them to know about what's going on in public education. What are some of the things that they need to wake up and listen to, and do some more investigation, and where can they contribute their time, energy, and talents back to help leaders like yourself?
Yeah. We're always looking for more friends. So, yeah, let's come on in and help us, because there's probably a role for, we do a great job of reaching out to our community, bringing in our volunteers. There are skill sets that are all over the place that can help us. The things, we constantly hear the same things. It'd be really great if that school had some sort of program for these kids who want to become nurses. Okay, well, we've had that for 30 years. And, be great if you had a welding program, and it's going strong. It's sometimes people just don't know. And we can advertise all we want. We can send out information until they're ready to absorb the information. It really doesn't matter what we're putting out. So, we're trying, one of the things we try to bring people into the schools as much as possible. Get people out to a football game, get them to come out to the basketball game, go see a play. Um, you know, um, we try to push that as hard as we can. We engage our senior citizens. We're coming up on our breakfast with Santa. Little kids like their taken with Santa.
Of course.
Senior citizens like their picture taken with Santa. So we take pictures with Santa. They love it. So we're going to continue to engage our community, and that helps us send the message, because whenever I have a captive audience, they're going to get a few moments of listening to Joe. All right. So I'm going to tell them about the great things going on.
Yeah.
We had a few years ago, and people still bring it up. We always have a theme for the year, and we had one, better together. And we always reference it. We always come back to referencing better together, because
Yep.
guys, we're better together. And when we talk about that, this whole community, we all need to come together, and that's the synergy that produces the results. We talk about our kids. I need our kids to becoming great citizens of Bedford, Euless, and Hurst. I need them to be great citizens of Texas, great citizens of the United States. That's what we're here for.
Yep.
All right. And they're going to live the American dream when we've prepared them to do that.
That's fantastic. I love that. When you actually think about kind of the challenges that are facing, people in your position as a superintendent, how do you how do you continue to be so upbeat and positive and lead through some of these challenging times to show up and be the authentic version of yourself? Where does that come from? How do you do it?
You know, I have fun every day. I always said, when I stop having fun, I'm going home first.
Yeah.
All right.
I
So
love that.
you can't take on this kind of job unless you can find joy in it.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. We find joy. Um, you know, I'm going to be the eternal optimist. I'm going to find a way to win. All right. And so there is a way to solve this problem. There is no problem we can't solve. All right. We're going to keep working. We've got challenges. We've got financial challenges. We feel pretty good in HEB, but we did some things financially a few years ago that have set us up we're in probably pretty good shape compared to many of our friends. But I'm worried about our friends. I'm
Yeah.
worried about trying to figure that problem out for them too, because again, we can't have a failure. We've got to protect this thing called public education, because it is that important. It is that great equalizer. It creates everybody who steps in has that chance to walk out on top.
Yep. Oh, that's great. For someone that is just starting their path down, coming out of the classroom and into an administrative role and maybe aspire to be at a superintendent level at some point, what advice would you give them that you wish maybe you had heard as you started down your leadership path?
Um, you know, I think as long as you continue to add value where you're going, then it's time for you to continue going. Some of us are going to hit a job where we feel this is my job. This is where I feel comfortable and add value. But the thing that I always find is people don't think they're capable of what they're truly capable of. I've sat down with great principals and said, "Man, you'll be a great assistant superintendent." And they're like, "Oh, no, never me." And I'm like, "Oh, you." But I mean, my favorite, I had my finger in the chest of my assistant principal when I was a teacher, and I'm like, I will never have your job. And I was an assistant principal, I think 18 months later. So I was wrong, you know, but I mean, sometimes we put limits on ourselves. And I think that's the other thing. We're capable of what we'll work hard enough to do and what's important enough for us to do it. And this is a job that is so important, because you have the ability to influence the lives of thousands of kids.
Yeah.
So the advice is, again, do you feel that calling? Do you feel this is the direction? Because it kind of is a calling.
Yep.
We talk about, guys, if you just want to make money, go out in the corporate world. I
Yeah.
mean, there's other avenues. Is this where you feel right? Is this where you feel you're giving back the way you're supposed to give back? I mean, to me, though, I mean, you learn as much as you can. You listen to everybody. You get every training opportunity you can because, we're very specific about how we do things, but I want my executive team to go to one national conference a year because, I mean, guys, whether we're going to do it or not, we need to know what other people are doing.
Yep.
And we need to
Yep.
know their why, and then we can stay with our why. But we need to know because when something happens, the more things we know, the more options we have, the more ideas we can generate to solve those problems.
And all those connections that you make, those resources that you bring to the table, you end up having other folks that have been there, done that, that will come to the table to have conversations with you about how you can do it as well. And that's of real value, I think.
Oh, huge. The connections. I mean, pick up your cell phone. By the time you get to my role, I can call a lot of different people that have done exactly what problem I might be facing. And I'm like, okay, what did you do here? I've got this, and this. Give me some ideas.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What are three qualities that you think every leader should have before they go into a role like yours?
Honesty.
It's a good one.
Just, you have to build trust. If
Yep.
people don't trust you, they won't follow you. Period. I don't know if anything else matters.
That's
You
true.
have People have to know that they can trust you, that what you say matters, that you're going to live up to what you've said is important. Um, I mean, there's so many other traits, like I said, we go back to our strength, and I think mine is communication and strategic and individualization, but all those pieces, guys, if people don't trust me, and I told a parent that one time, I said, if you don't trust me, then nothing great can happen from this relationship.
Yep. Yep. Ah, that's fantastic. One of the superintendents that's fairly new in their career had put this on the table for me to ask. When you're coming into the dynamics of a school board and there's all different, I mean, you didn't have a choice of who you get, thrown in to work with, right? What's the best way to start to build that trust and build that value with your school board as a new superintendent, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it is you have to be present. And what the school board values I've seen is that you're present at events, you know, and they want to know that it matters to you. And then every event that you can be there with them is another opportunity for you to have conversations with them to make sure we're on the same page, we understand each other. Another great thing, there's going to be conventions that you go to where you have the opportunities to interact with them socially, and go to some dinners, different things like that. You know, board, the board values, and I will say this, the piece that many young superintendents fail is communication.
Yep.
And I remember telling a story. I had my first evaluation, and we were talking about communication, and I think they scored me proficient. And I started talking. I said, guys, let me tell you about me in communication. I'm advanced. I that's the best thing I do. I am a great communicator. But before you think you know where I'm going with this, let me tell you what. I'd have scored me developing because I haven't figured you seven people out yet. That's the problem, is each one of them needs it differently. And those
Yep.
communication styles, as you try to figure out, how do I give them what they need? And then always also remember, you got seven volunteers. You got seven people volunteering their time. So you want to try to take care of them the best you can.
Yeah.
People talk about you got to baby your board, you know, but you kind of do. You got to take care of these people because, again, they're giving a lot to the community. They're giving a lot to the school. And again, they've got no paycheck at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent advice. Dr. Joe, I could talk to you literally for hours. You are so interesting and have so much value. I can see why everybody loves you so much. And you're probably stuck with me as a friend. I'm just going to say that right now. So, one of the things that I do, obviously, as I mentioned, I own this company called The Ripple Effect. Wrote a book about the power of building relationships the right way. You clearly are an expert at that. I also have Owner Insight, which is our software company. Both companies are actually sponsoring this series. But one of the things that I always like to ask is what I call ripple connection questions. It just gives people a little bit more insight as to who you are as an individual. They're kind of fun to ask, fun to answer, if you don't mind. As we
Mhm.
wrap up here, are you okay if I ask you a few?
Sure.
All right. What did the 7-year-old version of Dr. Joe want to be when he grew up?
7-year-old wanted to be a lawyer because Ken Dryden, who played goalie for the Montreal Canadiens, was a lawyer. And
Oh,
so, and I wanted to be a goalie. And my dad we had an ice rink in our backyard every winter, and Dad was the human Zamboni machine. He'd
no
smooth that
kidding.
ice every night.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. So would it have been hockey player or lawyer by day, hockey player at night then?
Yeah, yeah. Whatever it's take. I had that all planned out, but it didn't end up.
Uh, well, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's worked out for you. How many folding tables as a Buffalo Bills fan have you actually gone through?
I have not. Um, my son has. So, um, but
You
yeah,
lived
no.
vicariously through his experience there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we haven't been to a game in a while. He went to the Seattle game earlier this year, and he had just such an incredible. He lives up in Seattle, so that worked out well. We went to a game several years ago in Buffalo, and it's just such an event, and it's
Yeah,
such a community, and the thing that they just love that team, and that's kind of what I see here in HEB.
yeah,
God, these people just love their town. They love their schools. Um, it we have raving fans,
yeah.
and that's awesome.
I love that. Yeah, I heard I heard this phrase one time when I was talking to somebody about a bomb planning committee. You either rent here or you own here, right? And the way that you get the community behind whatever the district is doing is that you got to ask them that question. Do you care what happens to this town? Because if you don't, there's probably nothing I can say or do that's going to get you behind whatever initiative we have. But if you own here, and I'm not just saying own by extension of property, but your heart is here. It's
Yeah.
part of legacy. And I think that is so important. It sounds like your community does that. And obviously you come from a community like that. So
Well,
good
just
upbringing.
recent, we just passed $1 billion bond here in HEB. Just a huge, and the community said yes. Let's
Yeah.
do this. Let's rebuild these high schools. Let's build more elementary schools. Um, that it just says a lot of they want to take care of these kids and they want that pride in this community.
That's great. I love it. Well, so you haven't gone through any folding tables as a Buffalo Bills
No,
fan,
sorry.
but you are a football coach by trade. And
Yeah.
so my curiosity is if you were to be selected as the next Dallas Cowboys head coach, what changes would you make?
Okay, we're putting curtains up on those windows so CeeDee Lamb can catch the ball. I'm like, come on, Jerry.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
but I'll tell you, I'm not gonna make any judgments on Coach McCarthy or anything else there. But I'll tell you, they're struggling with some injuries and they're struggling with some decisions beyond the coaching staff.
Yep.
But that's the thing. I tell you, I wish the Cowboys well. As long as they're not playing the Bills, I'm cheering for the Cowboys. Um,
Good.
but yeah, uh, that's not a room I want to be in
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I
on
understand
Monday
completely.
morning now.
It would not be comfortable. That's a debrief that, their Delta meeting is probably way different than yours, I would imagine.
Yeah.
All right, last three questions. If there
All
was a
right.
billboard that you could put up that everybody would see, what advice would you give? What would you put up on that billboard?
There's so many little snippets, but you know, I, it's too long, but one of my favorite quotes was always Ralph Waldo Emerson: nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm.
Uh,
You have to find those things that bring you to life. Find that enthusiasm, find that joy. That's what keeps you going.
yep,
And what gets you up every morning, and that's what you got to do.
love it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's great. When you hear the term the ripple effect, what does that mean to you?
Okay, now, so the first thing I thought of was Will Ferrell in Spirited. And at the very end of, he tries to sing and
You're
they
like the
shut him
only
down, and
person
then
I've ever known that would have caught that. Oh, that's so awesome.
yeah, and then he finally gets to sing his song at the end of the show. But I mean, it's the little pebble can spread across the entire lake.
Yep,
And I'm a big fisherman. I sit out in my kayak. I fish out of a kayak. I'm usually by myself, and I'll be sitting, like out at Lake Fork all by myself, and it's quiet, and the sun's coming up. I'll drop a lure right where I wanted, and you see that ripple, and you
yep,
see, it's just those knowing that that can change and go all the way across that still lake. And
yep,
so that's the thing. I mean, we have the power. It's that if you have a position of influence, are you influencing for good? You can be that ripple effect across a huge lake. Are you a good ripple?
yep,
Are you doing things for the right reason? Are you doing things for good? Are we helping kids be better?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, without question, you are doing that and in spades. My last question to you would be what ripple can I look to create for you?
For me, I'll tell you what, I think just helping, we need to continue sending the message of there are great things going on in public education.
Yep,
That I mentioned it kind of earlier, but it is, one of my sayings, there is no American dream without public education.
yep.
We were recently rated the most diverse district in the state of Texas. I got kids from everywhere, and all they want to do is make a better life.
That's
They
great.
want to be they want to be great Americans, and they want to live that American dream. And here we are, that great equalizer. Public education gives you the chance. Boy, you enter here as a 4-year-old in pre-K, and we just sent a couple of kids to Harvard last year.
Oh, that's
That's the
awesome.
American dream. You got the possibility if we're doing our part, if we do all the things that we need to do here. Um, I mean, you come to our campuses and see like Trinity's Multicultural Day. Oh my goodness. It is
Yeah.
just, it makes you smile all day long. Yeah.
Well, that's part of why we're doing this series is we want to spread the good work that you and your staff are doing up there, the impact you're making for your community. And without question, I've gotten to meet so many great leaders, but I can see why your folks love you so much because your enthusiasm for what you do, how you do it's infectious. And I hope everybody that sees this video will go and invest some time to learn about your district and what you're doing. And if there is a possibility and you're open to it, is there a way that folks that maybe are struggling at their own districts or maybe on their own career paths in education to reach out to you? Is that something that you'd be open to? And if so,
Oh,
how would they get a hold of you?
yeah. I mean, pretty easy. I mean, my email is joeharrington@hebisd.edu.
Okay.
If somebody's got a question, I'll do my best. I mean, you know, I do have to get through a couple hundred emails a day that I'm already getting, but I try my best to sort through them. Um, but it's Harrington with an A.
Okay.
No, I mean, here's the thing. People have helped me, and that's the other thing. You got to lean in and help people. People need help. People have questions, and to the best of our ability, we're going to try and take care of people. People help me get where I'm at. I'm going to help people get where they need to be.
I love
Uh,
that.
but this is a great place. It really is, and uh, the people that this clicks for, boy, they don't ever want to be anywhere else.
That's fantastic. Well, Keep up the excellent work. You are an inspiration. I'm so grateful that we had you on. Leadership is a contact sport, and appreciate your time more than what you could possibly ever know. So we always like to sign this off with, just a thank you and ripple on. But I look forward to continuing our conversation well beyond this. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. This was fun.
It was a blast.